Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfeigned, the podcast. I'm Jay. I'll be your host. And before we get into this episode, I do want to clarify a few things. So, in the last episode, I shared some deep things. It was, it was mainly about my quote unquote life's formula, where whatever you put your attention to, you'll become attracted to. Whatever you become attracted to, you will pursue. But a majority of the podcast, the last episode, was regarding sexuality, pornography, things like that. I made a comment, and I was sharing with someone who's close to me. I was sharing some thoughts and things like that. We were having a little bit of a discussion, and then it hit me, and I want to just clarify. So I made a comment, something along the lines of I wasn't getting something from my wife, and I wasn't talking about sex or anything like that, but in regards to my need for feeling like the man. So what I want to clarify is it wasn't an excuse. I wasn't trying to justify my actions or my behavior or my choices. I wasn't doing that at all. I wasn't saying that because my wife was a certain way, that's why I did what I did. I would never say that. She didn't cause me to do those things. Okay, I'm still responsible for my actions and my behaviors. Um, even if, even if my ex-wife was perfect, even if she was exactly everything I needed, right? My brokenness would still have been there. My twisted perspective of sexuality would have still been there. Regardless of if my ex-wife was everything that I needed and the thing that I was searching for, even if she was that, everything that embodied that need for the applause and everything, my brokenness would have still been there and it would have still had to be dealt with. So in my discussion with this close friend of mine, I was saying, um, the only way that we would have been good is if I was good and if she was good. And I don't mean behavior-wise, good or bad. I mean, I had to heal, right? And she had to heal. And it wasn't because she was or was not healed that I was or was not healed. So I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't it wasn't I wasn't pointing out fault. I wasn't blaming. Um, so just wanted to put that out there. And again, this podcast is not about, it's not necessarily going to be about my marriage. It's not necessarily a marriage podcast. It's not necessarily going to be about my past. Okay. If any of y'all ever wanted to talk about any of that, something that I've made a commitment to myself since healing, since going through this healing process, is I will be transparent and honest and open and vulnerable. The cliche gets thrown around like, hey, I'm an open book. I don't walk around willingly offer details of my life and just willy-nilly, right? But if anybody asks, I'll gladly have a conversation and I'll share whatever they want to know. Because at this point, I've gone through a lot of healing. I've done a lot of work. I'm still on this healing journey, as all of us are. We will be, for the duration of our life. Hopefully, all of y'all are, and me included, are constantly growing and maturing and healing, and learning and changing, and obviously for the better. But I'm an I'm an open book, and if y'all want to know anything, let me know. My email is on one of these episodes. I put it on there, but basically it's unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com. So you can email me anything. I'd love to talk to you, especially if you want to hear details about anything that I'm not including in this podcast. So hopefully that clears up some confusion about some things, but let's get into this podcast. And on the last episode, I mentioned that I would be sharing on this episode, um, or diving into this 9-year journey, right? Last episode, I mentioned that it's been a 9-year journey of healing and growth and restoration and redemption and all of these things. Um, and so I want to start to dive into that. This episode, it's tough. This one's tough because um, I've shared this with people, and so they know. But this episode's tough because I have to go back, and while I don't mind that, uh, I'm not against it. I've done that often as part of my healing, but it still hurts. It's still painful. I think going back, I'm gonna take y'all back to 2016. We're gonna start at the event that I mentioned last episode, but going back um, means I will now be reminded, right? And not reminded of what I did. I mean, obviously that's part of it, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not tough because I'm going to be reminded of my behavior, or when I go back and when I take y'all back on this episode, um, it's going to conjure up all of those feelings of regret and shame and guilt, all the pain of of what I caused, the destruction that I caused. And I should say, and again, obviously, there's there's two people involved, and each of us have a story. My ex-wife and I, we each have a story. We each had a part to play in our marriage. We each were not perfect. We fell short of, both of us fell short of how we were to be in our marriage, concerning ourselves and towards each other. And I get that. But back in 2016, something clearly marked the end of it, right? Anyway, all that to say, it's tough because I'll be reminded of all of those feelings, right? Of who I used to be, and and what that led to, and all the regret. And so I want to take you back to 2016. And again, reach out if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever. I'd love to talk to you. And especially if you have questions, I can fill in all the pieces. But back in 2016, I had an affair. And again, this podcast is not about the details of that, my past, my marriage. It's about this 9-year journey that I've been on. So back in 2016, I have an affair. And I'm gonna kind of fast forward through some things. And again, if you want to hear details, I'll gladly share and answer your questions. Just reach out to me, unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com. Send whatever you want. But back in 2016, I have an affair, and that marked the end. But at the same time, it marked the beginning, right? And I'm gonna explain it. It started this 9-year journey that I would go on. And the journey was all over the place, man. It was painful, extremely painful. And over the next series of episodes, future episodes, I'll get into some of the things that caused all the pain. And growth over these last 9 years has not been quote unquote fun. All right. It hasn't been that in 2016 this thing happened and then cool, now I can start healing. It wasn't like that. I ended up being at the darkest place of my entire life before I could start to heal. Well, back in 2016, this thing happens. A couple things that happened from that point. Okay. There were decisions that had to be made. And here's a few of the decisions. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list, but a few of the decisions included whether or not we were going to stay married. Like what was going to happen, right? Because my actions, behaviors, and choices, and leading up to that, okay, this is now, what, 16 years into marriage. So, uh, everything leading up to that, um, weighed in. And so now a decision had to be made, like, are we going to stay married? Right? Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to part ways? We're just going to say, yeah, it's done. Or are we going to give this like the proverbial one last shot, right? So are we going to try to make this work? So that was a big decision. Okay. And again, like I said, I am generalizing here, so I'm skipping around. I'm just providing some info. If y'all want details or you have questions or whatever, I will be more than happy to provide that. Just reach out. So that was a decision. Another decision personally for me was, and I really was going through it at this time, was what do I believe about God? What do I believe about faith? What do I see? Up until this point, I knew stuff. I had the knowledge, right? I knew what the Bible told me. I knew what God told me. I knew the beliefs that I was supposed to have, that I had. And honestly, excuse me, if I'm being real honest, I thought I believed them. And it was at that point, honestly, when the affair happened, it was at that point where, um, I realized who I was, and it wasn't good because I became. I think I realized that I was the very person that I never wanted to be. I didn't want to be someone who had an affair. I didn't want to be somebody who destroyed a marriage. I didn't want to be somebody who destroyed a family. And up until this point, there's episodes of living in two different worlds. It's fantasy world and reality. And when all this went down, I was smacked straight in the face with, this is who you are. And it made me feel so sick. Like, it was disgusting. I never thought I would be that person. It's wild to think about. It's wild to think about because of all of my choices and decisions that I made leading up to that. But in some way, it was almost as if I was truly brought back to reality, and could see myself for who I was in that moment, and it was disgusting. And so immediately, the decision of, well, what do I believe? What do I believe about God? What do I believe about faith? Where does that put me? And I honestly, y'all, I can tell you that I don't know if I wanted to believe what I thought I believed. At this point, when this happens, it's shatters your world, and your brain starts racing. You have everything running around your head. And I felt so many different emotions about God and the Bible, and I think I just wanted to leave it all. Right? Like, I just wanted to be like, you know what? No, I'm done. I don't want to believe this. And I don't know necessarily where that comes from, except that over this 9-year journey, what I've learned is that part of that was rooted in, I didn't think I was good enough, right? And if you listen to the previous 2 episodes, that was a common theme, right? I didn't feel good enough, and so I had to make a decision that would combat that. Well, my decision, or my feeling of not being good enough, like, I'm not worthy. Like, look what I did. Look at all the things that I've done. And then this. I'm not worthy to go to God. I can't ask for forgiveness. Like, is he going to really forgive me one more time? Or I should say again. And so I just had this, this overwhelming sense of, I'm not worthy, right? I can't because I'm too disgusting, or whatever it is. And so I just wanted to leave it, right? So that was a decision. So do I want to stay married? Do we want to stay? What are we going to do? What am I going to do about God and my faith and what I thought I believed? And then what's life gonna look like? Like, now what? So now what, right? Well, one of the big decisions about if we're gonna stay married, like, we decided we were gonna, try to figure it out. We're gonna stay married. We're gonna do what we need to do, and so, the next years, right? It wasn't easy because then, obviously and rightfully so, I had to be purged, right? I think, and here's a concept I want to hit home on this episode. I think all of us want to be better, right? Everyone has a story. Some people's stories are more tarnished than others, right? And so I think all of us want to be better people. I think all of us want to be better for the people that we love and for the people that love us, right? And in general, we just want to become better people, right? And so we have this desire for that. But I think more often than not, we want healing to take place while we slowly open up, or we slowly uh, purge all of the disease that's in us, purge all the disgustingness, the sin, and we want to do that slowly because you know it's painful. It's painful. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. It's not something like you're like, oh yeah, this is exciting, man. Let's spill everything, right? That's not fun, but it's necessary. And I don't think maybe healing can take place through the process of osmosis. I don't know. I couldn't for me. And so what I really believe is that for healing, true healing to take place, there has to be a purge, right? There has to be a total transparency and a total vulnerability. Transparency and vulnerability are two key, crucial elements to total healing, to true healing. And if we're not willing to be transparent, and we're not willing to be vulnerable, if we're not willing to actually be totally exposed, then healing cannot take place. True healing cannot take place. Now, I want to add a disclaimer here. That does not necessarily mean that, and this may step on some toes, but that does not necessarily mean that you go back to every single thing that you've done in your past and now say, okay, here's a list of it. That does not necessarily mean that. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is, you don't have to sit down with the person and say, hey, I'm gonna read off everything that I've ever done so that I can heal. That's not like that, right? I do think that has to happen. I really do think that has to happen between you and God, right? Because it does have to be confessed, right? And I do think that for true healing to take place, there has to be a moment where you go before God and you say, here's everything. Here's everything. And help me remember even what I can't remember. Here's everything. And I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to surrender this. And I don't even know how to do that, right? I don't have it tangibly in my hands that I can hand over to an invisible God, right? But there has to be a moment where you fall to your knees, okay? And that's theoretically. And you could actually do it literally, but you go before your Father in heaven and you say, Jesus, here's everything. Take it. Heal me from this. And you confess it all. Now, regarding whatever the situation is, or there are some things that need to be confessed that are appropriate for healing based on that situation or that moment or whatever. And for me, for the affair, it was appropriate. It was necessary that I confess everything. It was also necessary that I allow everyone that was affected, meaning my ex-wife and my family, to ask whatever questions they wanted, and for me to be completely honest with those details. And so it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. But for true healing to take place, there has to be total transparency, total vulnerability. That's the first big major point of this episode.